Hello, everyone, and welcome to our next hit of World Rugby's Inside the 22 podcast/vodcast, where we check in with the biggest names in World Rugby. I'm Sean Maloney, and it is a great pleasure to welcome in two men who are massive, not just in Japan, but across the rugby world. Luke Thompson, Michael Leitch. This is a real special little surprise coming our way over the next little bit. How you doing?
Good, thanks, mate. How are you?
Yeah, we're good, thanks.
So, Tomo, part of the reason that you're kind of here is, I guess, as a bit of a circuit breaker, because I'm told that Leitchy is shy on occasion when it comes to this sort of stuff. I know that you're a great talker, so you're happy to just carry the load when the big fella runs a little flat?
Mate, once he gets warmed up, he's away in racing. He can talk the legs off an iron horse, that kid, but he does have his shy moments.
So where are you both right now? Where are you located around the world?
I'm back in Christchurch at the moment, so in New Zealand. I retired from footy, actually. Played my last game on the 19th of January, and then been back in Christchurch, back on the farm since beginning of Feb.
So you got out before the COVID hit. How's COVID treating you over in Japan? I think you're in Tokyo at the moment, Michael.
Yeah, I'm in Tokyo. No, the virus hasn't been too wild over here. We've just been released out of the state of emergency, so life's back to normal, I guess, over here.
Let's go back, because I don't know about you two, but it seems like the 2019 Rugby World Cup was 40, 50, 60 years, a lifetime ago. It feels so far back now. So much has gone in between. How have you guys afforded yourself an opportunity to sort of stop and reflect on how things played out in September 2019?
No, it was wild, if you look at the build up to the World Cup, once we got the bid in 2011 and, working towards 2019, the pressure was massive, the build up was massive, and to play like we did at the World Cup, it was really relieving. I know Tomo and myself, been in the team for a long period, to play in front of our fans and prove to the world that Japan rugby can play. It was really, really relieving.
Tomo, what about you? What have you sort of had a moment when you've been out on the farm to grab a second to look back on it? What have you caught from what played out last year?
It's a kind of funny thing to look back on, because the world's moved on so quickly, but I was just thinking today actually that it's been this time last year, what were we doing, sort of thing, and we were pretty much getting ready to go into camp, and training was flat out, and but just thinking back, it's amazing just how far Japanese rugby's come. From first 2007 was my first involvement, and a World Cup expectations and results there were massively different to how they were in 2019, and it was pretty cool to be able to be on that ride and just see the changes and the growth in rugby in Japan, and just to be involved in that 2019 Cup was pretty cool.
You've both been a part of it for so long on the Japanese front. When did you feel, Michael, like it was starting to turn in the right direction, in the direction that you wanted to go, where you were asking questions of some of the biggest teams in the world?
I guess it all started back in sort of 2013, where we started to put some real heat on some big teams, and that sort of created the belief. And when Jamie came along, when we started to really heat things up, was probably in our 2018 tour of England, where of the UK, where we put some good pressure on the English side, put some good pressure on the French, and that sort of started to create a belief. And that's when we started to think, maybe this reality of becoming the top 8 in the world, it's going to be, if we work hard at it, we can actually do it.
So 2013 is the turning point, but I want to go back before that. So you touch on 2008. You two have kind of taken a long-term investment approach to your time in Japanese rugby. Can you each take me back to the very beginning? How did you go from being in NZ to arriving in Japan, and how did it all unfold from those early days?
Well, for me, I was in Canterbury, and Canterbury was pretty stacked. There was a couple of good locks. Chris Jack, Brad Thorne, Ruben Thorne, Norm Maxwell. All these guys were, so there was not much chance to even play professional rugby. So the opportunity came up to go to Japan, and was only going to be for a year or two, and 16 years later, it was a amazing journey. Amazingly how quickly it went. Put it that way.
It wasn't like you were stuck behind too much decent cattle down in Canterbury.
Yeah, there's a couple of good fully. Yeah.
So you bounced out of Canterbury, but Michael, you went a lot early. You were there as a schoolboy, weren't you?
Yeah, so when I was 15, I had the opportunity to go over and study and play at the same time. Initially, it was only for a year. I was going to come back and play first 15, but it didn't work out, so I ended up staying there for the whole 3 years. And then, 16 years later, here I am again. I'm on my 17th year in Japan, and still got another 4 or 5 years left in me. So, who knows what's going to happen? I might even, start living here full time. I was back in New Zealand for 6 weeks after the World Cup, and it was really nice to get back and all, but I got bored very quickly, and although it's nice being back in New Zealand, but I feel like Japan it's become my home now, and going back to the NZ feels like it's a holiday. So who knows what's going to happen in the next sort of 10 or so years.
I think you might have another 5 to 10, maybe 15 years left in you, Leitch, up there. I think they won't let you go. But I want to go back to you, Tomo. Why did it go so quick, your time in Japanese rugby? How did it slip by so fast?
If I know.
Is it the food, the lifestyle? What is it?
Mate, it's. I think it's probably a combination of everything. Like, you go from being a kid to playing professional rugby, you're getting paid to play a game you love. You want to get better every year, and so the time goes so fast trying to improve yourself, trying to be to become a better footy player, and then you throw in the lifestyle, your food and then you're having time off at the end of the season. You go back to New Zealand, have a break, and then you're just keen to get back into it again. It's just amazing how quickly life rolls on, and especially when you're doing something that you really love. What
makes the lifestyle so good in Japan for both of you?
Well, for me, it was the time with family.
No, for me, it's the people. The people here are really lovely people. The environment's nice. The food's obviously amazing, but I really enjoy the Japanese people and just how they carry themselves and their work ethic, the amount of effort they put into their rugby. If you look at schoolboy rugby over here, the amount of training they put in, university rugby, the amount of training they put in, it's massive. You ask any rugby team in New Zealand to go through what Japanese kids go through, and I'd say half of them would pull the pin early. So the people here are very humble people, and it's for Kiwis, it's really easy to fit in over here. And you guys have fit in so well there for such a long time now. And I want to spin it back 5 years before we touch on what played out in September, October, November 2019. I've got to take it back to 2015 while I've got the pair of you. I've got to go back to Brighton. I've been watching the highlights again this afternoon of that match in the UK. Tomo, what are your recollections? I'm going to do it a different way. What are your recollections of the captain's performance that afternoon? What was your take on the way that Michael Leitch led the team around?
At the time, it just he was into everything. Like, every time you turned around, he was making a tackle, or he was kicking the ball or something, all the time, everywhere, all over the field. But then he still had that composure on the field as well. He didn't say heaps, but when he did, it was calm and collected, and it was the right thing that kept the boys in the headspace they needed to be. So, he just stood up and was a true leader, and it was really something I was proud of him to be able to be involved with.
It was an epic afternoon in every way, shape and form. Run me through the moment, Michael Leitch, when Kane Hesketh crossed the line to make it a 2-point buffer.
I was at the other side of the field, and both my legs were cramping up, and I thought we'd lost because I actually didn't see him score in the corner. But, I remember getting up from the bottom of the ruck, and the crowd was going absolutely nuts, and our prop, running over towards us, tears rolling down his face. it was a pretty epic moment. And that decision at the end, it was a collective decision. I remember talking to Tomo about it. It was a team decision. So that game really set the World Cup on fire, and it really lit Japanese rugby, and it needed to happen. And we've been working on the back of that ever since.
Who else was involved in that decision-making process around going for the whole kit and caboodle?
Well, the main guy I was looking at was probably Luke Thompson, because he's in the engine room pushing in the scrum, and he had some nice words to say at the time. But I just asked, can we scrum it up? Can we go for the scrum? And he's like, yeah, we can do it. So, we packed it down, and thankfully, we got the job done in the end.
I know that you've both spoken about it a number of times, but I really reckon it's worth revisiting. I actually checked in with a teammate of yours who was playing 10 that afternoon, Kosei Ono, who gave me some kind of an insight into the lead up to that particular game. How many hours do you think total each of you contributed to getting that result in the end? Like, how many of your own man hours went into getting that victory over the Springboks?
It's a tough question. Like, you're talking hundreds of hours, like just in the camp leading up. It'd be interesting to be able to calculate. Like, it's math beyond me, but we put some hours in it, right?
Yeah. I was asleep for 8 hours probably for the time that I was up. It was all about winning that game and preparing well. So, there was it was a massive build-up of the amount of hours we put in. We were up at 4 a.m., 5 a.m. some mornings training, six times a day. It was it'd be interesting to actually see how many hours we actually put into that campaign. It'd be phenomenal.
Well, those hours brought a movie on the other side. Leitchy, who played you in the flick? Tomo, who was your man in charge? Who was your actor?
Me, I wasn't even involved, mate.
You were part of the decision-making process for the match-winning try.
No, I was just the background, mate. I was just a grafter. I've got a face for radio, so it won't be.
I reckon Vince Vaughn would have played you if I was in charge of casting. I would have had you as Vince Vaughn in there. Leitchy, who played you? Were you happy with your actor?
No, I was happy with my actor. Had my beard, had my ears, had my receiving hairline too. So it was good. That's good.
I know you guys have, as I said, played well over 60 tests as an accumulative. If you're to go back now, Tom, I know that you've retired from the game. Leitch, you've got, as we said earlier, 15 years to come. Who would be a couple of the best you've played alongside and a couple of the best that you played against in your time, Tomo? You're probably best placed because, as we said, Leitch, he's still got plenty to go.
In terms of internationals, like playing alongside Hitoshi Ono, King-chan, the Japanese lock. He's a legend. I probably played 50 tests with him, locked with him, and he was a hell of a man. He's just retired himself at 42, I think. But to play alongside him for Japan was pretty cool. There's been so many good players to play alongside. It's hard to pick out a few. Playing club rugby with a guy like Tony Brown, learned so much and was really helpful for my career and learning how to become a professional and how things roll that way and stuff. Those two would be the best to play alongside.
And what about coming up against?
Positional wise, played against Bucky's Porto one time. Him and Brad Thorne are quite similar. They're just trying to physically dominate you all the time, like just into you positionally. So it was a good challenge. I never like trying to play against nippy backs. You always got a big forward running at you. You can sort of make the tackle or whatever, but you get those wee backs, the hot steppers come in and they can really make a fool of you if you're not in the right place. Those guys are tough to play against.
Leitchy, what about you?
Yeah, it'd be the same as Tomo. Obviously playing with Tomo and Kin-chan, those are two guys that really had your back on a bad day. So they were two guys that I really enjoyed playing alongside with. And just with the team we had now, we had guys like Matsushima and Fukuoka Kenki and Mano and Lafayette and Lapis. We had some really decent international players playing for Japan, and they really proved themselves. So it was awesome to watch them play, but also be alongside them playing. To play against the players that I played against that I really had massive respect for would probably be George Smith while he was over here. We had awesome internationals come through Japan, like Ferry Dupree, that big centre from Panasonic. What was his name again, Tomo? Ferry.
Jacques Ferry?
Jacques Ferry.
Yeah. Jacques Ferry and Skulk Berger come through here.
Skulk's a good man. Skulk's a good man. He's a
Skulk's a great man. Guy. Yeah, so, Japan's, we're pretty lucky, like Tom and myself, that, we didn't really crack it in New Zealand before we came, but when you come over here, you get to play against guys like, Jerry Collins, another name, and all these superstars. And, those guys do help Japanese rugby, and they've made it better. So, looking forward to players that are going to be coming through Japan, Japan, I reckon Japan is going to be one of the biggest spots to play rugby in the future, I think.
I think you're 100% right, Leitch, and no doubt that each of those players helped sort of contribute to the rise of the guys that they were playing against and alongside week in, week out through the top league, which obviously helped lead to your performance in 2019. So now we can bounce ahead to it. Take me back. As I said, it feels like it was a lifetime ago, but it was so memorable. It was so epic being there to see it in the flesh. How do you look back on those games, in particular against Ireland and Scotland? And of the two of you, which jumps out more as a memorable game?
Looking back on those games, they were all massive games, and the preparation that we put in place, you couldn't ask for better. Our leadership group was functional. Our communication with the staff and coaches was on point. Everything was aligned. And to go out and put what we said on, through our actions, put what we said on paper was awesome. But that build-up, the most memorable game for me would probably be the build-up to the Irish game, where the game before, the previous game before, my performance wasn't good, or the previous performance, even South Africa game, wasn't too flash, but I got dropped for that game, and I had to pick myself up pretty quick. And, I got the opportunity to play in the first half of 20 minutes, and I just came in and just gave everything I had and more. And to come away off the win, they're probably one of the biggest weeks and biggest games of my life so far. The Scotland game obviously was a massive game for us as well. It was a do-or-die game, and had the typhoon and had the press hounding us, and the pressure was on. But I was just extremely proud of how our boys and staff kept our cool and didn't change anything drastically. Jamie Joseph made us train out in the rain. We could have got electrocuted, but we were out there training, and so the preparation, everything we did was purposeful, and to beat those two big teams on home soil, it was awesome for Japanese rugby.
Tomo, what about how deafening it was inside the stadium for those two games? It was just heaving.
It was unreal. And just to go back, not many people speak about this, but when Leitch didn't start against Ireland, I don't think he's been given the credit for the way he handled that, and the way that, that could have been an issue for teams or whatever, but the guy shows the character of the man, that the way he just copped it and still added value, still took everything in a stride, and then came out and played the way he played. It was just, you could see when he came on, he just lifted the team, and the crowd came with him, and it was unreal. He just changed the momentum of the game just by coming on. So I think that's pretty special, and people just don't realise how much impact the kid has. But that, it was just unreal how much the crowd got him behind in both those games, how loud it was, and just the atmosphere. And unless you were there, you just wouldn't, to put into words isn't pretty difficult thing to do.
You've been alongside him for a long, long part of your career in Japanese colours. When did the Leitch cheer start coming from the crowds?
Well, I've only just, during the World Cup, it was the first I've heard of it.
Right, okay. New to it.
It might have happened before, but I'm usually too during the game to hear anything else that's going on. So, but that was during that Ireland game was pretty much the first time I really noticed it.
Michael, was that the first time you got your ears around it as well? It was so loud.
Yeah, I didn't actually notice it, at all until we got to about the Scotland game, and every time I got the ball, there was some kind of loud humming sound. And, but it was nice to know that the guys were supporting and stuff like that.
How good were the Japanese fans though?
Oh, Tom, they were incredible. Like, it was such a refreshing thing. I was lucky enough to be up in Kamaishi to call that game between Fiji and Uruguay, and the locals lined up either side of the path into the stadium, probably for about 300 metres, and for every single person that came out of that ground, they shook hands or high-fived or gave them a hug. Like, it was just... I don't think we'll ever see it again. I don't know. What do you guys reckon? Will we ever see crowds and volunteers embrace visitors like that again?
Hard to imagine, but they might have another World Cup in Japan sooner than you think.
Oh, we should. I'll be happy to go back for another one next week. Guys, I know that we normally start these chats off with our guest's best off-field story or tour story. I've left it till the end now after going through 2015 and 2019. What have you got for me on that front? I'm sure you've got something locked and loaded, ready to pull for the World Rugby Inside the 22 podcast.
Oh, no, we had some awesome evenings out with the team. What's the best one we've had so far? The most memorable one for me would probably be when it was in 2015. This was a bus to the airport, and all our families were outside waving us goodbye and that. And we get to the bus, and there's a roll call, and two of our guys are still sleeping. So we had to go race upstairs and wake them up. And one of the guys, he got everything together, and he was walking through the foyer, before the family's out there waving, and he had one shoe on. He had one shoe on. Half his number one's on. It was terrible, but that's probably the number one thing for me that stuck in my mind. Are you
going to name names?
He knows. No. He knows who he is.
He knows who he is. What was the reaction from Eddie Jones when he came out in one shoe and half his number one's on?
You just had that eyebrow on him. Just gave him the stare. And at the end, we sort of got off the bus, and then Tomo ripped him to shreds as well. It was a very memorable moment for me. I don't know about you, Tomo. I don't think you've got any stories.
No, I won't tell them the story about you and Georgia Leitch with the team meeting after the last game. That's probably better kept in house.
You can give us a sampler if you want, Tomo. You can give us a little taste around what may have played out.
Oh, look, I couldn't give away too much, but I'd hate to tell you, that the skipper had planned a big night after the last test of our tour, and he'd bought this like a horn in Georgia, I don't know, and you'd fill it with red wine and scull out of it, and the skipper, he'd planned to have a big night and get some of the younger fellas and teach them a few lessons, and he ended up teaching himself a lesson, and the next morning at the team meeting before we fly out, the skipper had to be carried in, and he wasn't too well, and I don't want to put him in a bad position.
I can see that you're looking out for him there.
We all learn different.
Yeah, and I think
different things about ourselves, and I think Leitch learned something that day.
And the moral of that story is don't grab a Georgian horn. Hey? There's something
it's a great way.
Before I let you,
There's a lot of danger in doing something like that.
there's a lot of danger involved in that. Before I let you both get back to it, give us an update. So, Tomo, you're back in NZ, and what is keeping you busy at the moment?
So I'm just flat out on the farm, mate. We've transitioned. We hit the ground running. We've got a wee farm just outside of Christchurch, and we've got about 300 deer here. We're doing a velvet farm, so we use the antlers from the male stags and send that off to Korea and China, and just kids being back into school and just sort of finding our feet and back in New Zealand. It's been quite a cool transition.
We missed the fact that you're not going to be back on the park again in Sunwolves or Japanese colours, because we love watching you for as long as you manage to cut around the park and deliver week in, week out. Leitchy, what's your next step? Are you going through some rehab at the moment?
Yeah, so throughout the whole World Cup campaign, I had chronic groin pain, and so I need surgery now, and so I'm just rehabbing that and waiting for my opportunity to go under the knife. So hopefully it's going to be in the next couple of weeks, and that's going to add another 4 or 5 years to my career.
So you play through to the age of 60, which is terrific for Japanese fans. Before I let you both go, one of the things I was going to sort of highlight for you both is that the World Rugby social media channels via their Japanese, offshoot, is still going massive. Japanese fans continue to go nuts for rugby in any form via the World Rugby social pages. So I thought now a great opportunity for you both to deliver those Japanese fans a little message down the barrel and just say, hey, what's up? And keep watching rugby. Leitch, do you want to lead off? And Tomo, do you want to close it out?
All right. In Japanese?
In Japanese.
All right. 皆さんこんにちは。リーチマイケルです。これからラグビーがもともと人気になるように、頑張っていきたいと思います。そして今少し、大変な状況ですが、みんなでこの危機を乗り越えて、そして来年、代表戦で、皆さんが見れるように、頑張っていきましょう。
Geez, you're not going to ask me to follow that up, are you?
I don't know what he said. You've got to add something to the mix.
Jeez.
That's why you're here.
It's not for me good looks or anything like that.
What do you got? Throw something out for the Japanese fans like Leitchy.
いや、皆さんこんにちは。トムソン・ルーです。今すごい難しいの時間、コロナの時、けど、みんな本当に頑張りたいくださいだ。まだラグビーまだ応援してください。気をつけて、stay home, stay safe。頑張りましょう。よろしくお願いします。
Ripper, mate. Thank you so
Leitch
much.
will be laughing at that because it's so pigeon confused.
That's all right. That's right. He's been there a lot longer than you have, so you can have a slide on that. Fellas, thank you so much for taking a moment to check in with the World Rugby Pod /Vodcast. As I said earlier, thank you also so much for delivering us some iconic moments across the last 2 World Cups. Tomo, we're going to miss you. We wish you were still on the park, but we wish you all the very best with your farming exploits. And Leitchy, we can't wait to see you pull the boots back on again, and all the best with your groin recovery, fella.
Cheers. Thank you very much.
Thanks, mate.